So Joe, since you like drawing with shadows in your style, by the way, Joe, I haven't seen your art lately. What's going on? You hiding from me? Shoot, you got something to say to me? I don't even know what that means. So let's talk about shadows very quickly, because you seem to like drawing shadows, and I like your style in using shadows. So to get better at shadows, it may be helpful to begin to understand how shadows work. It's a little bit of a learning process, but honestly, Joe, you have a really good grasp on it already, so I don't know if it'll be that hard for you. But so I'm just gonna sketch out a really quick sloppy drawing. Forgive me. Let me just speed this up. Hang on. And all I'm doing is I'm just trying to lay down a shape so that I can show you kind of what to think about when you're trying to figure out where shadows go. Some of this has to do with where lighting is in your picture. Some of it can just be whatever you feel like. Also, I haven't drawn, like straight up drawn, in about a month now, so I'm a little bit. It's hard to get things going. It's not as hard to get back to drawing since I've been drawing for as long as I have, but yeah, I was feeling a little bit. So look, this is gonna be extra sloppy today. All right, that's what I'm trying to say. So please forgive me. Okay, so I have a very basic shape here of a torso, male torso, and I'm gonna use the word planes. That just means like a side. So you see in this picture of Superman by Jim Lee, you could call all the dark spots planes. Usually, if you think of like a cube, one side of it would be a plane, and then here I'm gonna draw a plane. So this would be like the side plane of this torso. So this is gonna be a hard edge. Go ahead, Shantae. Draw. There we go. So this is gonna be a hard edge, and a hard edge just means the transition from light to dark is very sudden. So you have a very dark, like if you think of a number scale, like a 4, and then you have a very light, like a 1. But there's no steps, like 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, one of the things that characterizes this style is the lack of steps between shadows. Jim Lee is this artist here, which I would say your art most closely resembles right now. That'll probably change as you get better. But I think you do a lot of that, where you have a hard, like a dark, very dark area, and then a lighter area. So I'm just highlighting these sections of darkness. So there's a 4 there, a 4 there, and these all have pretty hard edges. He does use some cross hatching. So do you see these little slashes? You probably already know this, but that's called cross hatching. He uses that to sort of do steps between 4, 3, 2, 1. Some people will do it with just a wash, so they'll take like a color and then it'll be like a gradient. A gradient's like a sunset, so like when you look at the sunset, it's like it goes from like pink to blue, but you don't really see where it turns to there's not like a definitive, it turns blue here. That's a gradient. If you didn't know that, you probably already did, but I don't want to assume. Okay, so these dark areas indicate the deepest shadows. So there's like, really, honestly, in real life, you'll be able to see something there, but this is a stylistic decision to make this very dark, and that's great. That's fine. That will make you stand out as an artist as you develop this way of drawing shadows. Now I want to point something out here. You notice on on this surface that I'm highlighting, these curved spots. These have steps in the shadows because it's more like a sphere than a cube. And I will maybe explain that a little bit in a second here. But just notice that those areas, they do have the hardness, but then they have the cross hatching steps into lighter shades, if that made any sense. So as you're learning shadow, I would treat doing shadows in the same way you treat sketching, because in my opinion, lighting is kind of a discipline in itself within art, within just drawing. So you're learning how to draw and you're learning how to draw shadows. The two definitely have overlap because sometimes the way you draw shadows is how you show what you're drawing. But what I would do is don't spend a ton of time trying to draw a super accurate figure. Just draw enough to where you can begin to draw shadows and see how it creates shapes. So look here, I mean, this is not that great. But I tried to indicate one side of the shape on the right side, so I did that really dark. And now you can see, oh, this is kind of like a really hard-edged shape. So in other words, when I say hard edge, that means not very much like a sphere and more like a cube. And then under the chest here, the imaginary chest, I did the same thing. You can draw little like Do you see how I drew the open like little shape there with no coloring, with no darkness in it? Sometimes you can do that to kind of map out where your shadows are going to be. That way, before you commit to drawing the shadows, you can see where they're going to be at. Anyways, and I'm just kind of playing around here just to see what it looks like when I draw these shadows. So do a lot of sketching like this, where you're just playing with it. Where you playing with it, my dude. I'm playing with it. Hey, quit playing with your food, Goku. Finish him. Anyways, yes. So do lots of this type of shading, and just like you would do with the drawing, use a reference. That will help you to identify where shadows commonly show up on figures, and it can get you started being able to draw shadows from your own imagination. Okay, so I don't know why. God put this in me. I love drawing like the dumbest looking shapes, so I'm gonna do this right now. So I'm gonna draw a diamond crystal thingy. Oh, I mean, you have no idea. I love doing this. It's like the S. You know the S? The S? I mean, all I gotta say is the S. If you don't know it, then you don't know it. But I'm gonna draw this goofy looking crystal, and let's just say the light is all coming from the front of the crystal, and then the light abruptly changes to darkness on the back of the crystal. I have these I have the crystal divided up into these shapes just to fill in, to show, look, this crystal is getting a lot of light, bright, intense light from one side, but not really any light on the back side. This is a very crude way of showing what a hard edge is, but I did this to show you, look, the reason why one side is really dark and one side is really light is because the light is having a hard time cornering, because it's a very, 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 very hard edge. Versus a sphere, if I say, so this line here represents where the light makes the most dramatic change. So I'm gonna, I mean, it's gonna be a gradient the whole way around, so I'm kind of erasing bits of it to show that. Then I would take something like, so with you would use like a really soft pencil, like a, well, there's a couple ways you can do it actually. One of the ways is to use a soft pencil. Another way is to use cross hatching. I'm gonna do it with like a wash here. So I have a wash that varies depending on how hard I press my digital pen in darkness and lightness. And I'm gonna do a little bit harder towards the left. So let's just call that a 4. And if you're using a pencil, you could say that's like a 4B. Excuse me, 4B. Yeah, 4B pencil. And then towards the middle would be like a 3B pencil maybe. Then towards the right first quarter would be like a 2B, and then maybe just a B on the very end. Or you could do it with one pencil and just on the darkest side push harder, on the lightest side push not as hard, obviously. With cross hatching, you're gonna have more hatches, so more crosses on the darker, so the 4 section. With the 3, maybe your hatches will start to fall off. 2, maybe less hatches and no crosses, so no overlap, no X's. And on the 1, just barely any hatches. I didn't really do cross hatching very much, so I don't know if that explanation makes any sense. But you can see here, look at Jim Lee's cross hatches here. You see in the dark spot right next to the bicep, like the shoulder, you see how they're overlapping, but then when it gets lighter, it's just one line. And also the lines kind of follow the muscle. And then also, again, I'm just writing 4s here to show you, look, these are the darkest areas of Jim Lee's drawing. And then right there, that's that little line there is a 4. But look at those little hatch lines next to the 4. That'd probably be like a 3. Also, so going back to the bicep thing, see how this is rounded? Notice how he has the dark 4 section, but then those little hatch lines goes into like a 3 or a 2 to show you that, hey, this is a rounded shape, so the shading on this area gradually decreases. So this part that I just highlighted is a 4, very dark. But then look right below it. Look at those little hatch lines. He's showing you, look, this isn't as dark. So there's a little bit of light bouncing on it. I don't know why I just punched in real life, but there's a little bit of light bouncing on it. And he uses crotch hatching to show that it is not as extreme. So I drew up in the corner a little, well, excuse me. To keep it simple, you could think of that as the spherical type of shading. And then if you look at the side of the arm, there's no shading next to the dark spot that I colored in because he's meaning to show that this is a hard edge. Also, hard edges are used a lot of times when dudes are really strong. You begin to get hard edges. With weight and with fat, you have a lot more soft edges. So, and then on the face too, the nose, right on the bridge of the nose, that's a hard edge because the nose has a very abrupt change, you know. So the area on in shadow immediately to a 4. That's also a stylistic decision. The only anomaly is the chin, because notice that should actually be a gradient. He should have maybe, well, he should do whatever he wants. But a lot of people would probably do that with steps, more of a gradient. Jim Lee just kind of does a hard edge. That is a style choice. Things like this, you won't see that really in nature at all. I mean, I'm struggling to think of a circumstance that you would see that. But that's a stylistic decision. That's because he likes to do these extreme darkness and light portions of shadow. So you can do that in your style as well if you want. But learn the fundamentals first. Learn when it's okay to do this, because if he did that in a lot of the drawing, you would notice it, and it probably wouldn't look believable. You know what I'm saying? So, alrighty, that's it.